Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Once again, I'd like to start by thanking LABEX EFL for arranging the seminar series, Jonathan Ginsberg for hosting me, and of course, the Birgit and Gabrielsen Foundation for supporting my application. In the previous seminar, I discussed the power of swearing, providing evidence that swearing may be located and processed in different parts of the brain from other forms of language and speech activities, that swearing can help reduce pain and increase strength, and that swearing has the power to bring about a range of interpersonal benefits. Today, we're focusing on swearing in English as a second or foreign language. How is swearing in a second language different from swearing in a first language? And what's so special about English? For multilingual speakers, swearing in a first language is perceived to have greater emotional intensity than swearing in languages acquired later in life. For this reason, one's first language is usually the preferred language for emotional swearing. However, English swear words have been spread worldwide and appropriated by speakers of other languages, such that swearing in English as a second language is a worldwide phenomenon. This seminar offers a review of the research on swearing in a first language, or an L1, versus swearing in a second or foreign language, an LX, before presenting examples of English LX swearing in Sweden as a specific case. The examples provide support for the argument that the appropriation of English swear words in Sweden has resulted in a two-tier system of swearing, whereby English swear words fulfill distinct pragmatic functions, allowing for a coexistence with their Swedish counterparts. At the same time, their use is at odds with norms of swearing in both the Anglophone and native cultures, raising questions about the future of English swear words, their potential to retain their potency, and how this may affect the ecosystem of swearing. So I'd like to start with this question. Can you swear in another language? Okay. Yes, for the recording, yes, everyone can swear in another language. So we can all swear in our first language, our L1, and it's possible that other multilingual speakers have several first languages and can swear in all of those languages. Otherwise, we may know another language that we're calling an LX, or we may just know how to swear in that language. And in fact, swearing is my topic, so of course I'm familiar with foreign swear words, but I don't speak Finnish, and yet I know a lot of Finnish swear words. I don't speak Russian, yet I know some Russian swear words. So it's kind of a common phenomenon that we are aware of swear words, especially swear words in other languages. So I'd ask that anyone listening just silently think about which languages you can swear in and which swear words or swearing expressions you know. I'd ask that you also think about how you learn to swear in other languages, how often you swear in other languages, and how it feels to swear in some of your languages versus others that you know. Now, how does swearing in an L1 or first language differ from swearing in an LX? Research provides us with some answers. First, emotionality appears to be stronger in one's first language, the L1, than in languages learned subsequently, or L2. Affective processing is faster and more automatic in the L1, and speakers perceive greater emotional force when using their first language. A number of explanations have been offered for this. For example, the context of acquisition is usually different for L1 and L2. From this perspective, L1s are learned in naturalistic settings, involving interactions and relationships with, for example, family and caregivers, while L2s are often acquired in more formal settings or learned in formal settings, such as school or work, with fewer personal attachments or associations. Thus, associative memories can be seen to underpin the heightened emotionality of L1. Language embodiment is further proposed as a key factor in establishing L1 emotionality. As language is acquired in early childhood, in tandem with the emotion regulation system, the phonological form of L1 words becomes integrated with sensory information, autobiographical memories, and affective experiences, which are often not present in the L2. Different acquisition and usage factors will produce different levels of emotional force for L1 versus L2 swearing. Two related bodies of research have tested this hypothesis. The first considers self-reports by multilingual speakers, while the second examines cognitive and autonomic reactions to L1 versus L2 swearing. First, the most significant body of research on self-reports is credited to Jean-Marc Dewaele, who's found that the perceived emotional force of swear words is higher for L1 than for L2, and that speakers generally prefer the L1 for swearing. However, the emotional force of swearing in the L2 is moderated by a number of factors. Higher emotional force or more frequent use of the L2 for swearing is correlated with participants having learned the L2 in a naturalistic context rather than in an instructional setting, and also with an earlier age of acquisition. A key factor is socialization and acculturation into the L2 culture, indicated in part by L2 proficiency and usage. So both higher proficiency in the L2 and higher frequency of L2 usage are associated with stronger emotional force of L2 swear words and stronger preference for L2 swearing. Moreover, those participants no longer dominant in their L1 judged L1 swear words to be less powerful. It's also worth noting that for bilinguals who perceive similar levels of proficiency and usage frequency in both languages, the L1 was still used more significantly than the L2 for swearing. Second, the most extensive body of experimental research in this area has been undertaken by Catherine Caldwell Harris and colleagues, who've conducted a series of experiments exploring autonomic responses to L1 and L2 verbal stimuli, with a particular focus on negative emotion words, including swear words. In general, negative emotion words were seen to produce more arousal in the L1 than in the L2. For example, emotional phrases and reprimands presented in the L1 produced higher skin conductance rates, so SCRs, than in the L2. L2 proficiency and age of acquisition was shown to moderate the autonomic or skin conductance response to emotion words. Early learners and those more proficient or socialized in the L2 showed similar skin conductance rates for both the L1 and L2, compared to those who had acquired the L2 later in life or reported a lower L2 proficiency. So the skin conductance rates are actually confirming the self-reports. Analysis of responses to L1 or LX swear words has shown consistently that swear words elicit greater arousal than neutral words on the various measures deployed, including recall, skin conductance rates, and Stroop task interference, which I talked about at the last seminar. There is additional evidence for greater emotionality and higher skin conductance for L1 versus L2 swearing, as well as less interference from LX compared to L1 swear words, thereby indicating, again, more arousal from L1 swear words. English is, of course, an international language and a global lingua franca. Capitalism and colonialism have certainly helped spread the English language, but I tend to claim that entertainment and Anglophone popular culture have played an enormous role in maintaining the status of English as dominant among the world's languages. Wide exposure to English and easy access to Anglophone popular culture has furthermore spread English language swear words. But while swearing abounds in, for example, Anglophone music, television, and film, swearing becomes untethered from the native norms and sensibilities when popular cultural products are imported into non-native English contexts. Exposure to swearing thus occurs without the usual socialization and acculturation. This, in turn, makes it less likely for those who appropriate English language swearing from popular culture to be governed by English L1 norms. The result is a potential for very different swearing practices among L1 speakers of English and LX speakers of English, which can manifest as a cross-cultural clash. This, I argue, can be serious. I'd have you recall that swearing can be very offensive. The likelihood of experiencing swearing as offensive is a function of context. And if an LX speaker of English uses swear words with an L1 speaker of English, and in ways that are counter to L1 norms, this may be considered offensive, regardless of the intent. The use of swear words may thus lead to clashes in cross or intercultural communication. So let's see an example of how English swear words can be spread and how they may be used in non-Anglophone contexts. So on this slide and the next slide, I'm going to show a couple of short video clips that now, admittedly, are very old, but no less impactful. Let's take a look at the first one, and then I'll give you a little story behind it. Okay, I'll tell you a little background to this. I played this commercial for my dissertation committee during my defense. This was many years ago, and they were shocked. People had not experienced this before. If we think back to the previous seminars, we can maybe remember that this kind of literal use of fuck is consistently rated as the most offensive. And this is, you know, put into a commercial, and of course we learned what we saw. I think you could figure out it was a commercial for learning English. So there is an indication that there's an understanding of inappropriateness. You need to understand English, otherwise you're bopping around with your kids to quite offensive language.
Was this Belgium or France? Oh,
the Netherlands. Which is interesting because they have really a high level of proficiency in English, right? But it also goes to show that despite a high proficiency, you might not have an understanding for the impact of swear words. So it's telling that that it's swearing that they chose to get their point across. So this, you know, having come across this ad, in my initial research, I only focused on native speaker swearing, but I realized that English language swear words were being exported, and in other, you know, in non-Anglophone hands, people were doing things that we don't really do in Anglophone, native Anglophone contexts. Okay, I'm going to show another one. Oh, sorry. Did I manage to change this? Let me just go forward. Okay, before you can already see that this one is in French, so I just want to introduce it a little bit. This is a sketch from a comedy trio called Les Inconnus. Do you know of them? Maybe people are listening. Les Inconnus. So let's watch here.
I fuck you, I fuck you, man. Yeah, you know, man. Fuck me, I fuck you, man.
Fuck you. Un film d'action.
Come on, fuck me, man. Yes, I know, man. Fuck. Oh, fuck. Al Pacino et Robert De Niro dans Fuck You, un film de violence. Yo, fuck me. Yeah, fuck you, man. Yo, fuck me. Yo, fuck me, man. Yo, fuck me. You see my dick, man? You see my dick? I'm fuck you. Yes, you see my finger? I put your ass. Fuck. Fuck. I don't fuck you. Fuck You, un film sur l'amitié. Yeah. I don't wanna fuck me, man. I don't want. Hey, man, what? If you don't fuck, yeah. Yeah, come on, man. When you fuck you, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fuck off. Wesh. Yeah, fucking man, huh? Fuck You, un film de suspense. Motherfucker. Fuck. Shit. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah. Man, what? You know what it is? No. It's a fuck.
Okay, I came across this when I went to France and worked as an au pair. And I can just tell you the very first day that I met the children, the youngest child was a 10-year-old boy. I was presented to him. He came up to me and, hand on heart, he came up to me and he said, I fuck you, yes. And then I got the 2 kisses and then he took off. That was kind of my introduction to a French boy of 10 years old. Later, we're sitting in the sofa as, with the family and we're watching Les Inconnus. And this comes on and, these swear words are being thrown around. And this was before I got into swear. I mean, maybe it planted a seed, but this was entirely foreign to me at that point of my life, to see this on TV and to experience this with the family. But I would also point out that this sketch, they managed to really imitate so well the popular culture of police procedurals or police films, and also all the functions of swearing. That it's angry and it's interpersonal and it builds solidarity and it offers a release in situations of tension. So there is an understanding for the multifunctionality of swearing, but also this kind of disregard for the norms of native speaker swearing. And I think that kind of disregard is a little bit too much, but maybe more like they are not at all beholden to any of the social restrictions that L1 speakers are. So when swear words get kind of exported and appropriated in LX settings, this is what happens, and you experience it as funny. It's easy to appropriate yourself, and then before you know it, you're also using, as a non-English speaker, you're using English swear words. Okay. Get back. All right. So let's review a little the norms of swearing in the Anglophone context. And these examples that are coming up now, I'm drawing from my own American background. In a previous seminar, I discussed some of the personal rules that people have for swearing, but there are also more formal rules. For example, there are words that are not allowed to be said on television either at all or until a certain time in the evening, or the number of times one may swear on a television series is actually limited. And swearing is either not allowed or is censored in the press, on the radio, or in other contexts where a standardized, accessible language is expected. When swearing is somehow in the news, it normally requires censorship. In fact, swearing among American politicians has increased since a couple of notable instances a few years back. I think we talked about when Dick Cheney told a Senate colleague, "Go fuck yourself." And that was in 2004. And in 2010, then Vice President Biden whispered to President Obama that his healthcare reform was a big fucking deal. And that was caught on a mic. Those incidents were atypical then. Now, swearing among American politicians, if we look at this slide, is much more common, but nevertheless subject to censorship when it's in the news. And we also discussed how news organizations have had to figure out how they want to handle swearing. Are they going to censor it? Are they going to include it as is? Because it is part of the news. In a series of analyses on television, Barbara Kay and Barry Sapolsky have noted a steady increase in swearing, including the increased use of stronger swear words and the decreased use of milder ones. Swearing on cable and streaming networks is, of course, allowed, but broadcast or network television is still beholden to regulation. One way of competing with streaming services is to provide similar content. And the status of swearing as a distinguishing feature may be becoming less reliable. But the floodgates haven't been opened entirely, so there's still reason to try to sneak in swearing or use swearing to attract an audience. One way to do this is by hiding swearing in plain sight, putting it in the title, for example. In this case of "I love Dick," the use of Dick is possible because it refers to someone's name. In fact, it was once a very common nickname for Richard. For this reason, it's not so vulnerable or subject to censorship. The use of Dick as a name is uncommon enough today, though, that the double entendre is more salient. But people can use the word as a name without actually swearing. So there's at least some deniability here. In contrast, the series called Schitt's Creek poses a problem. Of course, the title is a play on the expression "to be up Schitt's Creek without a paddle." But here, the swear word shit is obfuscated by the spelling. But the spelling doesn't change the pronunciation. So in a discussion of this series on National Public Radio in the US, the radio host was forced to spell out the title and thereafter only refer to the series as Creek. Such are the lengths one must go to uphold language standards on public radio in the Anglophone context. I believe swear word creep is fully in progress in many Anglophone contexts, and it might be the case that the spread of English swear words and extensive use of them in non-English contexts may be having an effect, setting precedent for the expanded use in English. Nevertheless, examples such as these, which are titles of American television series, confirm that swearing still violates language standards and must be censored. This act of censorship then serves to reaffirm the taboo and offensiveness of swear words, helping them to maintain their status as non-standard. It's a kind of one step forward, two steps back sort of progress. And personally, I think this is fascinating to witness, but also important to track and document. But what does all this have to do with English LX swearing? My goal was to provide these examples of how English swear words are treated in some L1 English contexts, so as to establish a point of contrast with examples of English language swearing in non-Anglophone contexts where English is a foreign language. Having lived in Sweden for over 25 years, I've collected a massive amount of examples of English language swearing there. And now it's kind of a research specialization. My arrival in Sweden in 1998 coincided with the release of this film, Fucking Åmål. Åmål is a small town in the middle of the southern half of the country, and the film is about restless teenagers who are frustrated with their small town life. The main character wails at one point, in Swedish, of course. "Why do we have to live in fucking damn cock, Åmål?" and later refers to the town as simply fucking Åmål, and hence the title. The film was a wild success, certainly domestically, but also internationally. When it was released for the American market, however, it had to be renamed and got the title Show Me Love. The same year, a documentary about the Swedish rapper Leila K was released with the title Fuck You Very Much. So when I got to Stockholm, there were posters for fucking Åmål and fuck you very much all over town. I've previously argued in earlier publications that the release of the film Fucking Åmål was a watershed moment in Sweden with regard to the publicized use of English swear words. In its wake, Sweden saw the release of several books whose titles parroted Fucking Åmål, further establishing the use of English swear words as not only an acceptable practice, but a successful and potentially lucrative one as well. In this respect, these examples illustrate the commodification of swearing and the perspective on swear words as adding value. English language swearing appears prominently in the two titles pictured here, the names of two separate performances of Swedish comedian Mia Skäringer. No More Fucks to Give and The Final Fuck. So she actually did have one more fuck to give. To the right is a photo that appeared in news outlets when she was doing press for the show. English has long been a high status language in Sweden, and its use has been perceived as cosmopolitan and cool. It's also part of the Swedish identity to be highly proficient in English and to engage frequently and extensively in code switching. So it's not unusual for English to be used in both private and public domains. But from books to performances and now festivals and records, I include these not only as additional examples of swearing in titles of Swedish cultural products, but also to illustrate how swearing appears on the linguistic landscape. In these cases, on the streets of Stockholm. And on the left here is a poster for a festival called Fucking Burn It, Age on Stage. And on the right is the name of a song, Fuck Me Like a Robot. These posters were visible on signposts and electrical cabinets. The poster on the left, on the right, looks like it may have just been like taped there by anyone, advertising for the song. But the one on the left hangs in a poster frame specifically provided by the city and thus has been approved as advertisement, not only by the organizers and the venue, but also the city. Additional advertisements include this Shit Happens campaign from a property manager. The main text of the ads is in Swedish, but shit happens is a well-known English swearing expression that arouses curiosity and certainly attracts attention due to its size. It's a bit difficult to grasp the proportions of these ads, but they're a bit taller than an average adult, and they cover the entire side wall of a bus stop shelter. And speaking of size and walls, this ad covered the side wall of a 6-story building in central Stockholm. As you can see, the ad is entirely in English, which speaks to the fact that Swedish speakers are or are perceived to be highly proficient in English, and to the fact that English is used frequently in Swedish society. But ads like this, I would argue, have two important functions. One, they fortify the connection between English and swearing, and they legitimize the use of English swear words in public contexts. I'd ask you now to try to consider how you would react to this sign. And if you were to put yourself in the shoes of a native speaker of English, which you are, Beth, how would you react then? I'd like to share an example of how someone may react, a native speaker of English reacting. And in so doing, provide a clear illustration of the difference between swearing in an L1 and in an LX, or foreign language. Here's a picture of a bus that traffics central Stockholm. I just managed to snap this picture as the bus drove past me. So it was a moving target And I'm sorry for the poor quality that, I couldn't really catch it, but I tried to enlarge the sign in the bus window to the right. And it says, this is unfortunate that we have this drilling. It says luxury that doesn't fuck up our planet. And the ad is from a company called Residues. Clearly, someone else in Stockholm also saw this ad and decided to report it to Sweden's Advertising Ombudsman's Council. So let's take a look at that complaint. We're just going to take a short pause to see if we can identify the origin of the noise, but maybe they're taking a break too. Okay, the council has summarized the complaint, which has claimed that the word fuck violates the International Chamber of Commerce's rules for advertising and marketing communication, and that the word should not be normalized for young children when the swearing is coarse. So the complainant finds the phrase fuck up to be an example of coarse swearing. The advertiser was asked to respond to the complaint and noted the following. One, that the complainant was a British tourist, so not a Swede and not an American, which you'll see is important later on. Two, swearing is a more sensitive topic in the UK than in the US. Three, the advertiser consulted with NCOA. So NCOA is this really posh department store, very conservative store as well. And NCOA both liked the tagline and thought the swearing was justified. Four, the ad has otherwise received positive comments, but these are not shared. And five, the swear word is part of the phrase fuck up. So the swear word fuck is actually in fuck up, which has a different meaning than fuck. And now finally, six, the advertising company consulted with Stockholm City Transport. Stockholm City Transport itself found the ad acceptable. Considering the complaint and the response from the advertiser, the council concluded that the ad was not aimed at children or young people, neither through the products advertised nor through the design of the advertisement, which we'll remember was quite plain. Black text on a white background. The council acknowledged that children and young people may encounter the ad, but that this has no bearing. Finally, the phrase fuck up has a different meaning than the word fuck on its own, and therefore cannot be regarded as offensive. The council ruled that the advertisement was not offensive and not in conflict with the International Chamber of Commerce's rules for advertising and marketing communication. So now we have an understanding of how native speakers of English may react to the use of English swear words in this non-native context, which is in contrast to how these words would, or perhaps more accurately, would not be used in the L1 context. It's also enlightening to hear the kind of justifications for this usage, such as the claim that Brits would be more sensitive than Americans, which feels like an attack on the complainant. And it is interesting that the semantics of the expression are considered when my suspicion is that for the British complainant, fuck, no matter how it's used, should not be featured in public advertisements. Additional examples of ways in which the use of English swear words in Sweden contrasts with the norms of Anglophone contexts include public figures who adorn themselves with swearing jewelry. The women, or parts of women, you see on this slide include, to the left, Filippa Reinfeldt, who at the time was the wife of Sweden's Prime Minister, Fredrik Reinfeldt. In the middle is Anna Kinberg Batra, who in this photo was the leader of Sweden's moderate party. And to the right, Margot Wallström, who was Sweden's Minister for Foreign Affairs. Each of these pictures come from Sweden's largest broadsheet newspaper. And in the cases to the left and right, the texts explicitly point out that Reinfeldt's bracelet says, fuck cancer, and Wallström's necklace says, take no shit. Shinbari Batra's bracelet is not mentioned explicitly in any text, but we really should consider the composition of the photo that allows the bracelet to be seen, and the fact that this politician made the decision to wear the bracelet. I would guess that American politicians, especially women, would not be able to wear similar jewelry without causing a small scandal. And as for the fuck cancer bracelet, please consider this next example. This is a photo of a piece of mail sent to me at my home address. Now, as a researcher of swear words, I can tell you that I was delighted to have data delivered directly to my home. But again, I can't help but muse over whether the way English swear words are used in Sweden would be possible in, for example, the US. I can't imagine that millions of Americans would not be offended by receiving mail at home where the word fuck is front and center on the cover of the envelope. Nevertheless, this kind of usage may be excused. We can understand that swear words are edgy and attention-grabbing and are thus suitable for titles of cultural products and events or for inclusion in advertisements. And cancer is, of course, horrible, and we should want to banish it with swearing and also show that we support the fight against it. And furthermore, when politicians join that fight and flash the symbol, then it might raise awareness among others, increasing support for the cause. The examples so far show an understanding of the value and power of swearing, and especially English language swearing. At the same time, these usages of swearing suggest a relationship to swear words that is in contrast to Anglophone L1 norms, such that there are no social or cultural restrictions to swearing. This is perhaps most evident in the use of swear words in the press. With the series of examples beginning here and to follow, I'd like to point out what I consider a penchant among the Swedish press to highlight swearing in English. The underlying message is that English language swearing is newsworthy. Swearing can be in photographs, as we see here. First, fuck Corona is graffitied on a wall in Stockholm, and then a cluster of swear word graffiti on a Confederate monument in the US. Both of these examples were on the front pages of Sweden's largest daily paper, Dagens Nyheter. And swearing occurs on the front pages of the paper's weekend magazine, too. On the left is the full page, and on the right is an enlargement of the relevant part of the text. That which convinces me that swearing is considered newsworthy is the repeated practice of highlighting swearing in pull-out quotes. On these examples of the front page covers, the pull-out quotes are made salient not only by virtue of being pulled out or extracted from the articles, but also by the use of large print and the placement in prominent spaces on the pages. Similar pull-out quotes with swearing tend to dot the landscape of the inner pages of the newspaper, too. So we'll see some examples of that. This, to me, is a fascinating practice and effectively shows a meaningful difference between swearing in English in Sweden and swearing in English in Anglophone contexts. To highlight swear words in this way would not be possible in state or national newspapers in the US. It either wouldn't occur at all or it would be censored. This practice suggests that in Sweden, swearing in English is both attention-getting and, as I've said, newsworthy. So in my second seminar, I reviewed an example of swearing in the UK that was also newsworthy. But the difference is between swearing being newsworthy because it's problematic or controversial, and swearing being newsworthy because it's printable. In other words, the lack of restrictions on printing English swear words in Swedish newspapers warrants neither censorship nor translation. Including swear words in this way asserts the free rein that Swedes have with English swear words, and also serves to legitimize and standardize their use. and it positions English swear words as entertaining. So here's one of my all-time favorite examples of swearing in the Swedish press. This is Erik Hamrén, who was the captain of the Swedish national team during the 2012 World Cup in soccer. After Sweden lost to England, Hamrén participated in a press conference in English. His sentiment was that if Sweden had to lose to England, then it would be just as well if England won the whole tournament. What he said in English is a word-for-word translation of a Swedish saying, "Låt dem vinna hela skiten." The fact that Hamrén said this in a press conference and that this quote is then pulled out in this way in the national newspaper is further testimony to the unproblematic use of English swear words in Sweden and perhaps their entertainment value. Finally, we can find further support for the rather uncomplicated relationship to English swear words in Sweden by contrasting their use to the use of Swedish swear words in print. So on this slide is just a small collection of examples of Swedish swear words that have been censored, a practice that does not apply to English swear words as far as I can tell, and I've really looked. The juxtaposition of free rein swearing in English and censored swearing in Swedish thereby supports the finding that native or first language swear words are consistently perceived as more taboo and thus more emotional and powerful than equivalent words from a second or third language, an LX. In similar contexts of usage, English language swearing is written in text, English language swearing in written text is not censored, while Swedish language swearing is. A practice that serves to maintain the taboo and strength of these L1 swear words. Overt censorship of written text, such as we see here, both highlights and obscures swearing. The propositional content is nevertheless conveyed, but the observable censorship also communicates the inherent taboo and an ideological stance that may be transferred to and adopted by the observer as a pragmatic effect. The examples of non-censored English and censored Swedish provide evidence of English swear words being invoked as non-offensive tools of verbal stylization, edgy entertainment, or advertising gimmicks, while Swedish L1 swearing is framed as potent. Importantly, this evidence of both the parallel use of English and L1 swear words and of the resistance to attributing to English swear words the same force as Swedish L1 swear words serves to establish a two-tier system of swearing, whereby the taboo of English LX swear words is lessened or even neutralized, while the taboo of Swedish L1 swear words is strengthened. But what does this have to do with the ecosystem of swearing? Well, it's not the case that only Swedes use English swear words. Rather, the occurrence of English language swearing in other non-Anglophone settings warrants particular attention. The global reach of English, and especially of Anglophone popular culture, contributes to the exposure to and spread of English language swearing specifically. If widespread English LX swearing jeopardizes its potency in the LX, what is the effect, if any, on L1 English swearing? In other words, if the use of English swear words in non-Anglophone settings is truly part of a two-tier system, whereby English swear words are rendered less potent, what is the effect on English swear words in native Anglophone contexts? The proposed two-tier system of swearing does not similarly apply to L1 English speakers, prompting the question of whether, and if so, how, the emotional force of L1 English language swear words can be sustained despite their global spread. Would a global appropriation of English swear words compromise their potency in the L1? Or does the LX use of English swear words reflect just another two-tier system, whereby English language swearing is only potent in Anglophone L1 or native settings, while English LX swearing is inoffensive and unproblematic. But what is the potency of English swear words then, when used in interaction between English L1 and English LX speakers? I'll conclude today's lecture with a reminder that the ecosystem of swearing is maintained by interpersonal variation in perceptions of the power of swearing. The cross-linguistic spread of swear words thus has the potential to both weaken and fortify this power, highlighting the importance of continued research on L1 and LX swearing. Before I end, though, I have a special treat. And I'd like to share some of the examples I've found since being in Paris. So here's some graffiti. Now, I did take a picture of French language swearing that I found on the campus that you pointed me to, Jonathan. But here are some examples of English language swearing that I've seen in and around Paris. A couple more. And then this picture on the left kind of is reminiscent of the same bus stop swearing that I observed in Sweden. And the t-shirt is an example of this co-modification of swearing, so swear word products. So in just a short time here in Paris, I was able to find some examples of English language swearing here. So I hope that kind of underlines the spread of English language swearing and the importance of sort of documenting what it does to swearing.
So
I'll stop there.
do you view this this LX swearing as a kind of a means of kind of a devious means of swearing without sort of kind of bypassing the taboo of L1 swearing?
Yeah.
Somehow that's the point.
Yeah. I really feel that, and just have some anecdotal evidence that the fact that English swear words have been adopted by non-English speakers allows them to have these two systems. So when they want to swear kind of casually, they'll use the English swear words. But that has sort of re-injected the potency into the L1 swear words. So when they really mean it, they go back to their English, or sorry, their L1 Swedish swear words.
And then which are not, and I guess the Swedes are no less not more permissive about swearing in Swedish.
More permissive than maybe the American culture. So you can hear, in heated debates or conversations, you can hear Swedish language swearing on the television, on the radio, and people complain. They'll complain about the Swedish swearing. And just every once in a while, they'll complain about the English swearing. But it's not nearly as common considering how frequent English swearing is in public and how infrequent the Swedish swearing is. So the few times it happens in Swedish, there are reliable complaints, similar to the complaints that I showed about Stephen Fry. But it's telling that complaint was lodged by a native speaker of English and not a Swede, and the fact that they invoke some kind of evidence that lots of people approved of that advertising campaign. We don't know who those people are, but you would assume that it was maybe Swedes that approve of it. Yeah.
I have a comment about that ad where he's on the phone, he says bullshit. I had trouble figuring out the meaning of BS for a minute.
Yeah, in fact, that one was kind of interesting because you see that there's this asterisk here, and then it brings you down here, and that says what does it say? It says foutaise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess this is supposed to be the translation.
Yeah, right.
What's the word in French?
Foutaise? If I'm
Says
seeing,
like foutre
yeah,
is the root. I've never heard that, but my French swearing isn't
Yeah.
that good. And I mean, at first I thought, why is he smiling? And he's saying,
yeah, does this even make sense?
and then I realized, oh, because someone told him something that made him happy, so he's yelling bullshit. I mean, he's saying bullshit, but that's a usage in English. It's just not the most common one.
It's kind of, he's actually supposed to be saying something like, I guess, I don't believe it.
Because the price is so
Yeah.
good, or so the rate is so good.
You know what we would say? No effing way.
Yeah,
We would not say, so that must be a French usage.
No, because actually there's also an ad that I've used quite a bit, related to laughter.
Mm.
And where you see, but it's also in the same genre, I would say. And you see three orangutans laughing, right? And it says, when my banker proposes to me, says my savings are safe or something, I think something, right? So you see the three orangutans laughing, right? Meaning bullshit, actually, right? Meaning it's sort of below.
Like,
Yeah, I don't-
even an animal, 85% that we share 88, I mean, 98% of DNA with, got it.
No, I don't think it's that deep. It's
Okay.
it's just laugh. It's just the fact that they're laugh. You know, that right. When you say something to me that's ridiculous, then I can laugh. I might laugh like that. Sort of disbelief, laughter disbelief. So that's what it's going to. So it's kind of the same idea of sort of, an offer that's so amazing, and I'll just, but as you said, bullshit is really not, is kind of,
We would say no fucking way,
yeah, bullshit is
but with a
not,
certain intonation.
yeah, right, it's bullshit is not quite appropriate.
That's
sort of
what's
wrong.
missing, in the printed word, the intonation is missing. And that's a huge key for me on meaning. Like you might say, bullshit, or something like that.
but his expression is also not
It's
really
so
lining
weird.
up with it. And then it just makes you wonder,
No,
like, what
but
are they doing
I've
with
got
this swearing?
this great off. I mean, it could be I got this great off. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, because what would he frown? I mean, it'd be kind of, yeah. I guess actually frown is more appropriate. No, yeah. I mean, would a frown be better? I mean, a frown it doesn't.
No.
Not entirely.
It has to be a smile. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a frown would be really.
Because even for those who the meaning doesn't pass of BS,
yeah,
the face shows something great's happening.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, but I when I look at this, I don't see his expression as just having said or about to say bullshit.
No.
Correct.
I got this great offer. That's
So
that's why, yeah, there's something quite, but it doesn't matter, right? The whole point, it doesn't matter in the sense that you got the attention, right? That's the point.
Yeah.
It's just to get attention. Let me read this carefully. What is
right, emotionality, impact, like you said.
Yeah, it's just to grab the attention. So
am I allowed to tell a quick anecdote about our children and your children?
Sure, yeah.
They came to the US and kids were all like elementary age, like maybe no one was older than 12. And our kids are playing, and then almost immediately when they start playing, they were like, fucking fuck. And my kids are like frozen. Like, oh. And they said the F-bomb. And I was like, yeah, but look, it's casual. It doesn't have a meaning for them. It's okay. We don't have to worry about it. You're not going to use it in school. You're not going to get in trouble. But at school, they get in massive trouble for the F-bomb. And they're just casually throwing, like, where's my...
I don't remember that at all, because my kids have...
They use that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to call into question your memory, but I don't remember my kids. I remember Carl swearing in English.
Right.
But I don't remember the kids.
In all of that.
Yeah.
Like they thought it was very cool that you guys could just throw around the F-bomb, but it was like they didn't want to use it because they knew they would be reprimanded. So, oh yeah, no. Remember when you all came for Christmas? I don't know how old they were.
Yeah, no, I don't remember, yeah.
But we remember it clearly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then they'll tell the story, and people will be, oh, really? And then I try to say, it's because different words have different meanings. You know, if it's a second language word, it might not be as strong.
Because for my kids, they didn't understand, you know, as much as we talk about it, they didn't understand, they didn't get the socialization of swearing in English until we had a semester abroad and they went to an American school. And they didn't swear themselves, but they heard kids swearing and the teachers reprimanded, and then they understood that, then they got that experience. And that's a memory now that they have. They remember a teacher reprimanding someone else and they internalized that.
Well, that's what
that
I'm saying.
reaction.
They just had maybe heard it from Carl.
Yeah.
And then they were just saying it like a regular filler word, like kids will do. They'll just pick up words around, toss them in and out. You know, I'm not saying it was wrong or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it was.
No, I mean, but that's not my memory that they repeatedly use those words. I have a difficult time.
We'll
Saying that they would, you know, use it repeatedly. But it is, I mean, I have been exposed to Swedish youth and the frequency with which they use English language swearing is incredible. And they don't get in trouble for it at school. Swearing in English. And once I know a teacher had a talk with the class of one of my kids, just to be, you know, raise awareness of swearing. But it was swearing in English was never reprimanded. And we had maybe experience from 3 or 4 different schools.
But swearing in Swedish was reprimanded?
Yeah.
I just think that our anecdote, like our different memories, perhaps it was only like once or twice when they were throwing that around one situation and you guys weren't around. We were out on my front porch. But it was so potent that it's really powerful that they remember, oh, they were throwing around the F-bomb the whole time. Yeah. Well, no, actually, it was probably that one instance.
Yeah. No, but also that's really telling. We were just talking about memory and people's memories of swearing and the ones that kind of imprint upon you, and how that affects your relationship to swearing. And I think it's really meaningful, not only your own swearing, but observations of other people swearing, kind of learning vicariously through other people's behavior.
And that brings me a quick comment that I had a friend in Lyon, and he basically taught me argot. Like I didn't know, I was academically trained in French, so I didn't have any understanding, but all the vocabulary was charged. So I learned to understand, but I didn't want to repeat because I didn't know. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's also, it has been a little bit of a pop cultural theme to put swear words in the mouths of children. And that's like a comedy strategy. It's funny when you know, when children swear, they don't know what it means and you have to bleep it and everyone's shocked and it's just funny. Or to put swear words in the mouths of foreigners. So when someone comes over, you know, someone comes to France and you tell them, oh, you know, go and say this. And then they say, you know, some kind of French swearing expression, they're completely clueless about it. And then everyone laughs because it's for some, you know, and that's something, you know, to pursue in terms of the relationship between swearing and laughter. Like, why is it funny when we can get someone to say swear words and they don't know what it means? I think that's really interesting. And I just feel like it's something that has been kind of, it's become a trope even in popular culture that a foreigner says a swear word and then people laugh about it.
Or me during your presentation, I couldn't stop giggling because I'm like, this is really funny how they're using that word and it's just out there.
Don't you know there's a scene in Big Lebowski of this guy, he's played by John Turturro.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And he says, "I'm gonna fuck you in the ass." You know, right? In a very kind of. That's when I heard the you know,
the jingle there.
Yeah. That
radio
kind of.
play.
I was like, what does it remind you of?
Yeah.
Big Lebowski. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and he kind of does this but he's really enjoying it actually, when he's saying this, right? And I think he's probably even kind of laughing a bit.
Yeah.
Together with it, right?
So just to help me out, because my memory is that he was playing like a Latino character.
Right.
So then the question is English his first language, or wasn't it kind of a Spanish?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know what he was. Yeah, Mexican or whatever he was.
Yeah.
But I mean, his English he's yeah, I guess it's probably L2 that, but it's But he's he's an LA resident, Lily. Yeah, so he's he's part of the culture there, right? It's not foreign. I mean, he's not really foreign.
But I just wonder if a viewer kind of picks up or sort of assumes that he's a second language speaker of English, what kind of allowances do we make, or what kind of how does our interpretation of that swearing, how is it affected by maybe just knowing that, maybe just because I think he spoke with an accent in that film.
Yeah. But I mean, there's so much swearing going in the Big Lebowski that it's kind of like
sure,
you know, it's everybody's swearing there in quantities that are kind of like, you know,
right,
the hundreds,
right.
So, and I mean, you know,
but there's
a lot of L1 swearing.
Absolutely. But the only little star that I would put there is just entertain the idea that it may, on some level, viewers may sort of have an understanding for him that he's a second language speaker. He's learned to swear, but it might not be.
Yeah, but fuck you in the ass it's not exactly neutral. I mean, it's sort of
no,
it's not just this, right?
It's something it's
pretty strong.
taboo. When I saw the movie, we were like,
exactly. But that would be easier for a non-native speaker to say than a native speaker.
Good point.
Yeah. But as I said, I mean, there's just so much going on there in terms of swearing.
Yeah.
It's sort of like.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I think, I suspect maybe there's also a mismatch like that when Lebowski meets Lebowski, you know, the old guy, the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I mean, the guy in the wheelchair is quite proper. Whereas Lebowski is kind of throwing around, sort of, you know.
Very laid back.
It's really kind of, the other guy's getting really annoyed because of the way he's speaking to him. So, and he's throwing all these words, all these sort of, you know. So it's exploiting that too. But
very different readings of the context and what the appropriate behavior would be. So that's really a clash between those readings. Yeah. I mean, it's super interesting, and I especially appreciate films and television because you have the opportunity to edit. We have to believe that almost everything is on purpose. If it makes it into the final cut, they wanted it there. There are no mistakes. There are no slips. You could always do a retake. So the swearing is even more meaningful, I think, when it's been planned out in that way. But I mean, and this has to be, you know, this is kind of just an assumption on my part, but I do think people have where they have an awareness of native versus non-native speaker. And when non-native speakers swear, there's just a different kind of interpretation. And I think we shouldn't be too quick to dismiss that because he's actually this Latino character that maybe had Spanish as an L1, that he's picked up a kind of swearing that maybe is in contrast to native swearing norms, and the fact that he's down in a, you know, this kind of very coarse swearing that further tells us this is swearing by someone who doesn't really who doesn't feel it the same way that native speakers do. So he's freer to use these expressions. I mean, I certainly don't want to claim that I understand the mind of writers, but it is a possibility that, and especially, you know, this movie is a cult classic, so people watch it again and again and again, and they, you know, they analyze and they think about it, and there's, you know, the fact is it's a Latino character, probably has Spanish L1, using swear words in this way. Maybe that's on purpose to contrast with the way the other people swear in the movie.
Yeah, no, that's So people,
Yeah.
So interesting. And to the point, I had an American friend, he was completely bilingual, Swedish English, and he had a Swede for a parent and an American for a parent. He would go to Sweden and his accent was so good. He would make a cultural error, like saying a Swedish swear word, and then people were like, oh, like he was harshly judged.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, I'm gonna keep my little American French accent, because it'll help me get by.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. You know, when people are, when they achieve that kind of balanced bilingualism,
From birth.
yeah, and just find it, but you can't be both places at once.
Yeah.
So, you know, somewhere there's some culture has to kind of, and you know, especially if we think, because now I'm with a group and we're trying to see if there is kind of a critical period for forming your relationship with swear words, and where you are, you know, regardless if you have your parents with several languages, where you are might play a greater role than we think in terms of this socialization and culturalization of swearing in particular. It would be interesting to talk to your children about swearing, actually, with you know, with the cultures and the languages.
so they only swear in English,
They only swear in English.
pretty much, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Pretty much that's what it's.
And I'm just
But I don't,
curious.
but obviously when they speak to them, I mean, I imagine when they speak to friends in French, to the extent that they, you know,
Yeah,
but
but you lived in England. How old were they when
no, they're born there.
they were born there?
Oh,
Yeah, but yeah.
And they were pre-teens, adolescents when you moved?
One was 9, one was 4.
Oh, so that was actually quite young. Okay,
Yeah.
that was pretty young yeah. Okay, that's super interesting. Yeah.
well, they certainly had input at age 9,
Hmm.
walking around. No,
Yeah, I guess,
Maybe.
but
well, the Brits are more.
no, I think it's a class thing, because, you know, I mean, I think working class, you'd hear much more.
Yeah,
Than
right.
middle class, so.
That's right.
What we're trying to investigate with this autobiographical project, autobiographical memory project, is, I mentioned in the last seminar, this reminiscence bump. So we have a colleague who's worked a lot with music, and she always asks people, you know, what are your favorite songs? And when people relate their favorite songs and when these songs came out and when they learned them, they almost always cluster around like early to late teens. So around 15, 16 to 18, something like that. That's when we have like our favorite songs. And, you know, there's a lot of emotionality. There's a lot going on with you at that age, and you form these relationships. I mean, I think we've all heard it, like everyone thinks that their generation's music was the best. You know, you form these relationships with this music. So we're trying to investigate, you know, can there be also this kind of clustering of significant swearing memories during this time period. And it's showing a little bit of promise. You know, if I'm asked, what's your earliest memory of swearing, your most vivid memory of swearing? I do have a memory that I can recall. And sure enough, I was about 14 years old when it happened. So we're getting some evidence that there might actually be this reminiscence bump even for swearing, that these vivid memories, these impactful memories happen to us during this kind of this period of high emotionality. But I also think that it's a relationship that evolves. In the beginning, we're probably all kind of tentative. We have to sort of feel our way around swearing. And then we might go through, you know, a period where we have young children. We tend not to swear. And then we get into, you know, we kind of even out, it plateaus. We phase into middle age, older age. And then, you know, we're freer to swear. And there is evidence that older people swear. They have almost no cultural restrictions to respect anymore. So there is, you know, our relationship with swearing, there are peaks and valleys there. But the question is, you know, what is the role of those first experiences with swear words and swearing? and either one's own or just, you know, vicariously through other people. You know, noticing like, oh, I remember seeing a movie and hearing my first swear words. You know, when did you see that movie? And I think we talked about South Park last time, and they had, I think Heather brought up, no, Heather wasn't there last time. Somebody brought up South Park and like, you know, the Uncle Fucker song. And the South Park movie, it's these kids who sneak into the movie. They see these actors swearing, you know, throughout the movie. And then the next scene is they're leaving the movie singing the Uncle Fucker song. So they have seen this swearing in action, and you know, their mouths are open and they can't believe it. And they just appropriate it. They adopt it immediately and walk out there. And now they're swearing. And it's just that age. I don't know how, I think they're in 3rd or 4th grade in South Park. I think that's around their age. But that would also speak to this kind of clustering around that age period.
And trying on an identity, a new identity that you haven't had before.
Yeah.
It's thrilling.
Yeah. But crucially, having that be the language of your peers. So it's something that they do with each other, but they know, I mean, it's the vernacular for that peer group, that friend group. And then there is a school scene, they're in school, and one of them happens to say, you know, to another classmate, oh, blah, blah, you Uncle Fucker. And then you've got the teacher reacting to it. And that's where you get this understanding. Okay, you can't just say this wherever. So it's, you know, it's a kind of a 2-step memory process. But that's the sort of socialization and culturalization that is missing when swear words are exported or imported into a non-native environment.
Interesting, because after all, one of the supposed key distinctions between language and music is that music, supposedly music cannot be translated, whereas language can. And this is kind of yet another piece of data that shows that language is also part of language, at least untranslatable, right? Because you can't really translate. This is showing you that you can't translate swearing, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you cannot. I mean, in a sense, of course, you could. You know, if you have a script for the movie, right?
Yeah.
Then you can sort of bring it in, but it's really not gonna have. I mean, it's not gonna be working the same way, and yeah.
I have a lot of contact with translators in the Nordic countries who have told me that especially for subtitling,
right,
that people prefer for English language originals, they prefer for English swearing not to be translated because they all understand it. And they don't think that the native swear words capture the same, they just don't weight them the same way. They always feel like the native swear words are stronger, that in English, you know, films, fuck is used so frequently that there's no way it's the same thing as, for example, like vittu in Finnish. So they don't want to see the vittu, they want the fuck. They want to see it because they understand it, they know it. And you know, and if someone decides, okay, maybe it's not vittu, maybe it's perkele, then they'll get complaints. No, it's not perkele. There's no way. So you can't win. They don't want to translate it. If they translate it, they think it's the wrong one.
That just reinforces the idea that swearing in LX is, I mean, the meaning is fundamentally altered.
Yeah. It's very difficult for people to agree. Okay, this is a 1-to-1 correspondence. You've captured it. No, it's always something. Well, it's somewhere between fuck and down, or no, it's there. It's very difficult to get people to agree.
As a visual artist, because I'm a visual person, like when I see BS, I see a pile of And I think there are some people who have those really literal, conscious or not, images that come to them. You know, like you almost smell it, or I don't know. I think that that's missing in L2 or LX. Could be. I'm asking.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm asking. It's a,
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's a way off
like
topic.
there's in French, there's putain, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, when you hear it,
Do you really think of like
Do
a
you think of
prostitute or
a-
something?
a sex worker.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. Yeah, to a certain
Sex worker,
extent,
probably,
maybe, but I mean, because I mean, English for some reason, the whore is not very, it's a bit, I mean, it exists, right, but it doesn't really, it's not really part of the swearing. Son of a whore doesn't really work in English, right? Doesn't. Whereas like in Hebrew, it's the one of the commonest swear word. So it's like asshole, you know, but it's a bit stronger. So. I mean, it's like only in your lecture it's the first time in my life I realized that motherfucker had anything to do with incest. I had never ever thought of, you know, I've heard this term thousands of times, but I'd never actually, you know, analyzed it as somebody said, and this has got to do with it.
So do we conceive of it as an adjective when they say motherfucker? Is that just like emphasizing effort? Or is that?
I mean, I don't know.
Vocal, you know?
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's after not an uncommon thing of not analyzing words internally, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah. Internalization. It's just an endlessly interesting topic.
Yeah. Yeah, but there, no, it would be interesting to know. I see your point, Beth, about maybe perhaps not experiencing these or taking these as literally in an LX. But these languages where there's a greater practice of swearing by the mother. Does anyone recognize that that's fundamentally an incestuous reference? Or is it just so far removed? I mean, we tend to sort of lose. It's typical of a non-native speaker to really see. Oh, I see this word as, you know, the composition of two words, and then a native speaker is like, oh, I never noticed that before. So I wonder if there's. You know, you propose that maybe a non-native speakers wouldn't experience, or LX speakers wouldn't experience that, but I also wonder if they have this more analytical approach. Like they see things that we just are blind to now. You know, we don't even think about it.
In a country,
yeah,
like a group where swearing or talking bad about your mama is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
You know, like, remember that Saturday Night Live sketch about your mama needs dirty diapers? I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. You know, you just talk about your mom. Like in the South. Yeah. I mean, you don't swear on somebody's mama. You just don't do it. Yeah. It's the worst thing.
It's like, you know, Zinedine Zidane, you know, in the 2006 World Cup. Supposedly he was sent off. No, somebody said something to him. Exactly. Yeah. And supposedly he headed him because he said something about his sister. His sister, exactly. That's what I thought it was. Yeah. And so his sister won. So yeah. And in Hebrew also the same applies to, I mean, again, in Hebrew actually one of the commonest swear words is from Arabic. And you know, your mother's cunt, or your sister's cunt, or your mother's cunt. These are the two common.
That's very derogatory.
No, there it's actually it's one of the commonest swear words. It's like shit, basically.
Oh, really?
More or less, yeah. No, not cunt. Your mother's cunt.
Or sisters.
Yeah. Right, they're more or less cool.
Yeah.
Can't even conceive of that in my vocabulary. I've never heard it.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting to me that it can extend to sister, not
right.
Yeah, because of course in those societies, you know,
I mean, there's
there's
the
honor
honor,
things,
yeah.
right? So it's
Yeah,
sort
of
like
course.
it's a way of impugning somebody's honor. So it's
Yeah.
kind of-
Absolutely.
And is that also matched with the threat of being a child with a powerful mother? Like, I think that's part of it in the US too. The mama, you know, you cannot, the mama does everything and the mom is sacred. I don't know. I mean, but any female in the family.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, in the Nordic languages, it's actually only Norwegian that has swearing by the mother. It's very strange that they have it, but the others don't. I mean, you can't, anyone can do it, but it's more established there. But it also kind of brings you in more into maybe cursing than swearing. You know, you can say all sorts of things about one's mother, but it doesn't mean you're swearing. You don't have to invoke swear words to insult or curse by mother.
Okay, I guess I'll stop the recording. There's somebody else in the